This is the Coach Dan Day Show, presented by Dino's Sports Lounge in Greensburg and Latrobe. Here's Dan Flickinger and the head coach of the Seton Hill Griffins, Dan Day.
Welcome back to Griffins Game Day on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We are on the road with the Griffs as Seton Hill takes on Clarion, and we welcome you to the Dan and Dan Show, the Coach Day Show, brought to you by Dino's Sports Lounge in Greensburg and Latrobe. And Coach, last week, another nationally ranked opponent for the Griffins. Second straight week, this time number 10, Slippery Rock, comes into Offutt Field, comes away with a 55-14 victory. Just your takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I thought we had moments that we played well, and especially in the first half. I really thought we did some things that, we really wanted to do. Ball control was a big piece of what we wanted in the first half, and we ended up out possessing almost 22 minutes to 8 in that first half. And I think, come away with some possessions and key moments. One was, really two, a blocked field goal and missed field goal. Well, second field goal drive, we had points on the board. Being undisciplined took points off the board, right? In the first one, with getting a blocked field goal and coming away in that drive was detrimental, of not having points. So I think we did some good things, and even defensively for them to play. I felt like they're an electric, explosive offense, and I think they did some things to put us in position, and especially in that first half. And if there's anything I was disappointed with, this is the first game that. We didn't finish the second half. We didn't play as hard in the second half as we did, in that first half, and had, a little bit of a defeated mindset. And that's, culturally what we're working to continue to get better at more than anything else. So I think we played well, for those first two quarters, and I just don't think we responded well enough to finish a little stronger in the end.
Well, you mentioned the possession time, Coach. Slippery Rock leads 7-0 in the first quarter, but Seton Hill mounts a 16-play, 68-yard drive all the way down to the Rock, 23-yard line, 4th down and 3. You attempt the field goal, as you mentioned, and it gets blocked. First, was it a little too early to maybe go for it in that spot for 4th down and 3 that early in the game?
Yeah, so thought process there, if you look back at week 2, and we didn't get anything going offensively, and with such a young group, I didn't want to mount that much of a drive and come away with 0, right? I have a lot of faith in Hunter and being able to get his job done, and that field goal, not the operation, not being completed with 3 points on the board, was not because of him. It was a blocked field goal, and our operation was a little bit slower with not having our starting long snapper in, so we were operating with our backup, who just isn't timing-wise quite the same. So that was the biggest part with that, Dan, is we had converted a 4th down even on that drive to continue to get going. I wanted to just get some points on the board for our momentum. We talked after the Westchester game that I felt like it was, kind of quicksand for our offense, that the longer it went without points, with being such a young group, the more I was worried about them not being able to rebound. So we had a great drive right away, so let's go out, put some points on the board, and gain some confidence, and I really felt like we'd have been in a great position had we done that.
Well, it was just a 7-0 lead after the first quarter for Slippery Rock, but things certainly changed in the second quarter as the Rock put up 20 unanswered points. And, Coach, I guess the same was kind of true the week before against Westchester. You guys trailed just 2-0 after the first quarter, and then Westchester kind of took control in the second. What kind of went wrong for your team in the second quarter?
Yeah, we didn't, we weren't sustaining, those drives. Like you mentioned, the 16-play drive in the first half. We also had a 12-play drive in the first half. We were able to sustain that. And so similar to Westchester's, once you get to that point in the second half, part of those long drives is us being able to run the ball really well. Mm-hmm. And then, look, third quarter, I'm still playing to win the doggone game. I don't care what the score is at that point. I'm working to put points on the board and score as much as we can. So, obviously we open up our offense a little bit more, and we start taking a little bit more shots, through the air, which – if not completed, then slows that clock down. So the possession really swung back in their favor. And I really think the biggest momentum play of the game after we had, scored on the KOR, Slippery Rock did answer, and then our defense went back out and had the opportunity to, they took them off the field, and still a relatively, the game was not out of control, forced a punt, and then one of our players touched the punt and gave them possession right back. They score in the very next play. And I really think that was kind of the moment that deflated the energy, and we weren't playing as hard as we could have at that moment.
Well, let's talk about your first touchdown of the game. Came on a little trickery. Keenan McGriff throws it to Chris Jones, the quarterback. He races in for a touchdown. I'm sure that's got the guys going on the sideline a little bit when you see something like that come through.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I enjoy, putting in some different wrinkles and trick plays, and I think the players have fun with, you're always going to operate within your offense, but something a little bit different, something a little bit new. And at that moment, we had run the ball well, but against that front, I didn't really trust running it well enough to just, when you get tight, now those safeties in the box, I kind of thought we're going to have to do something here just to make sure we get a score on the board, not leave it up to a field goal, and that's when Coach Dutton went to that play.
And obviously the guys executed it to perfection.
Absolutely, yep.
Coach, the other score you put on the board was from special teams. Darnell Carey races a kickoff back 92 yards for a touchdown. Kind of take us through that play. And, again, another type of deal where I'm sure when you're watching that back on film, that's something you guys can smile a little bit about, that you got a special teams touchdown.
Sure. And, you watch film, and earlier in that game, we're talking about our KR unit not working, it just not getting their jobs done as well as they could. You go and you watch film just as we do every Sunday, and you watch that clip. We have a double team that we're working on one of the frontline guys, as well as a kick-out block by McDuffie as a fullback. McDuffie's block ended up in the sideline, and the double team ended up in the sideline, right? So a little bit different when you bring that effort, and Darnell did a great job reading the seam. He saw the crease and did exactly what we asked him in that situation, made a great play, but it wasn't Darnell just going out there and making a ton of people. I mean, we executed very well on that play, played incredibly hard to, really bury their guys in the sidelines. And when you do that, when you have, what we talked about the week before, uncommon effort, that's the result you're going to get on that play because the guys did their jobs.
And I have a feeling that's a play that you'll be showing the players for a long time in time to come the rest of the year, right? I mean, especially if the kickoff return is not doing what you want it to do, you can keep referencing back to that play and say, look, guys, if we do it this way, look what can happen.
Yep, just work as hard as you can. Yep, no doubt.
Coach, Chris Jones got the start at quarterback. What went into that decision, and is it kind of a case-by-case, game-by-game thing now with him and Ryan Barabee?
Well, a big part for Slippery Rock, as we've talked about a lot, we're so young up front, and they're a really, really good, stout defense. They have a lot of strength, and not only do they have a lot of strength, their defensive system puts an extra hat in the box. So as we're game planning over the weekend and watching film, how do we need to neutralize that extra hat in the box, and how can we still have an effective run game, and still open things up on the perimeter. So a big part of that decision was, Chris Jones' athleticism, that we added some quarterback runs into the mix. And it probably didn't, just watching it probably didn't look like, well, you didn't see that as much, with the quarterback runs, and that was only because all of the actual reads were give reads. So you wouldn't have, necessarily picked up that was a lot more quarterback run game, but
he had that option.
That's the way we neutralize them adding a number to the box to be able to let Chris be an extra runner in those situations, in a lot of those positions. So that was a big decision going into that week of, I just don't think we were there against that team to be able to just line up and maul you, especially with three freshmen starting up front. We weren't there. So, we had to be a little bit more diligent on, we got to manufacture offense however we can, and we just thought, Chris's legs gave us that ability on Saturday.
What gives you the best, or who gives you the best chance to win today against Clarion then, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm excited to see what Ryan can do again, in the air and how he plays. He's got an exceptional arm, and I don't think we're playing a defense that is as good at just putting pressure on you. I don't think a defense that's quite as stout, as what Slippery Rock was. They're a good defense and play really hard. I just don't think they're quite the same caliber. So being able to open some things up in the air, let our receivers get loose against the secondary, I think would be a great opportunity for us. And I think Ryan gives us a good opportunity for that.
Keenan Humphrey is our Griffin's Player Spotlight, which we'll have for you coming up in just a little while here on Griffin's Game Day. But huge day for him, Coach. 8 catches for 90 yards. You certainly want to see the passing game continue to develop, and Keenan, one of your veterans, stepped up last week.
Absolutely. And what you're seeing is the product of a new offensive system, and we're settling in, right? We're getting a little more comfortable week by week and being able to understand, you can run it in camp, you can run it in spring ball. It's never going to feel the same way until you go out there and run it on Saturdays, and now they're starting to get a feel for that system. And we've got a lot of new starters, on our side, and not necessarily in the receiver position, but within the protection piece up front, within the pass game with the protection piece of our running back, quarterback being those guys splitting some time, and with Chris and Ryan. And so we've got a lot of pieces that we're just settling in and getting our offense, to understand how we all need to get in sync and work together. I think we've had a great week of practice leading up to today to put us in a good position to be successful.
Saw some guys get dinged up a little bit during the game. I know Fardan Allen got dinged up maybe a little bit, a couple guys up front. What's the health coming into today?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, we lost one guy, that won't be able to participate this week that could last week in Davi and Laney. So he's really the only one that we lost, heading into this week. So all the other stuff was, even when Trevor went down up front, he was only down for 2 plays. He came right back in the next series, and Fardan with his hand issue, he'll be in a cast, but playing free safety in his senior year.
Just knock it down.
Oh, he's going to play. He's going to play, no doubt about it. So we're adding Mike Valentino, in the backfield this week, so we feel great having him back. Logan's not quite ready, but adding him back to that backfield, I think, will help us again in the run game.
We mentioned the backfield. I want to ask you too. Jaquan McGriff. I don't know if he officially got the start, but he certainly got the bulk of the play in the backfield as a freshman. How did he do?
Yeah, I think very well. I think very well. For a freshman, the part where he excels, as any young running back does, is just put the ball in his hands. He's comfortable. He's got to be able to adapt the rest of his game to those roles you have, pass protection, right? Those roles you have in carrying out a fake on play action, all those little things to be able to make him an elite back, just getting better at those. But I'll tell you right now, you feel good just putting the ball in his hands and letting him go. And he showed that, on Saturday. He's pretty dynamic, and excited to have him seeing what he can already do as a freshman. He's got a very, very bright future.
You are watching the Coach Day Show here on the Westmoreland Sports Network and Griffin's Game Day. We'll take a quick break and we'll talk about the Clarion Golden Eagles coming up in a moment as we are counting you down to kickoff between Seton Hill and Clarion on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We'll talk about the Golden Eagles next.
Dino's Sports Lounge presents mouth-watering wings, voted the best in the state of Pennsylvania, 20 ice-cold beers on tap, giant man-sized sandwiches, and all sports known to mankind on multiple plasma and big-screen TVs everywhere you look. It doesn't take a genius to figure out Dino's is the place for the real sports enthusiast. Dino's Sports Lounge, 2 locations, Route 30 Latrobe and Greensburg.
Dino's reminds you to drink responsibly, have fun, stay safe.
Being a champion takes more than talent, more than the perfect pass, more than using your head. Being a champion takes the spirit to always push harder, the ability to overcome any hurdle, and the fire to be the best. Welcome to Division 2, where the pursuit is yours to create. And the question isn't, can you do it? It's, will you?
I'm Seton Hill's running back Aaron Moore, and this is Westmoreland Sports Network.
Coach Day Show rolls on, brought to you by Dino's Sports Lounge in Greensburg and Latrobe. Don't forget, don't go away. We have our Griffin Player Spotlight coming up with Keenan Humphrey. But right now we turn our attention to today's opponent, the Clarion Golden Eagles. And, Coach, they are fresh off of a loss against Gannon, 51-35. What kind of stands out to you about Clarion when you watch them on film and when you watch last week's game against Gannon?
Yeah, and we talked to our players about, our guys do a great job of watching film on their own, too, to prepare. And we told our guys to really watch the difference in Clarion against Gannon compared to the Shippensburg game, compared to Lockhaven game, compared to the Shepherd game. I think they look like a different team. Every team, sometimes you go out on that Saturday, you just, for whatever reason, preparation, whatever happened, that the team just it wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite clicking. And that, to me was what the Gannon game was, because I said you watch Shepherd film and you watch those other games and they play hard. I mean, really, really hard. I just didn't see the same level of effort in the Gannon game, which is what I think ultimately led Gannon to be able to take a pretty comfortable win on their end. But, those other games, I mean, they play hard. That's the biggest thing I'd say about their team overall. I think they give great effort and play whistle to whistle in every aspect, so they're gonna give you everything they have. There's no doubt about it.
You mentioned the players on their own time watching film. I want to ask you about that real quick, because I think a lot of people maybe don't even realize how much access there is to film for the players on their phones. And we even see this at the high school level. In the old days, I guess, back in the day, even when you played, it was like the only time you could watch film was actually in a room with the coaches. But now, kind of explain, I mean, the players can access it wherever and whenever they want to, right?
Yeah, so we put different cut-ups together for them to watch. I know one thing I do, with the offensive line, right, is if you just go and tell a player, go watch film, like, they might not know. Like, what am I really watching? So we actually, as a staff, we put together film study sheets for them.
Okay.
So it's a way, as you're watching film, certain questions to fill out, whether it be the defense specifically, whether it be the guy you're going against, whatever it is, to kind of help guide you through how to watch that film and how to let that film, be successful for you. And that's, look, in college football, I mean, that's it. If you're not watching film on your own, we're not going to be successful. It's that simple with the access you do have, and everybody that wants to be a great, player, and good teams watch a lot of film outside of just the meeting time.
Going back to Clarion, we mentioned Jaquan McGriff. I don't know if there's any relation. I don't think there is, with Malik McGriff, who is a really good running back for Clarion, averaging about 125 yards per game. Right now, the Golden Eagles have the best rushing attack in the PSAC. What makes that aspect of their game so good, Coach?
He's a dynamic runner. I mean, he is I'd say different than our McGriff. Jai for us is pretty, elusive. Malik he's a power back. I mean, he will run you right over, and I think that sometimes he enjoys and relishes that contact. So he's a really, really powerful runner, and does a good job of always getting extra yards through contact, which those add up, in a big way. And sometimes those smaller runs in the first half lead to big runs as you wear down in the second half, as you tackle a power back. So we've got to really, bottle him up early. Because you let him, get going and get ahead of steam, and he can punish you as a runner. So I think that's the biggest aspect of his game, is he's definitely a power runner.
Their offensive coordinator, Clarion's offensive coordinator, Chuck Yeager, was here for 6 years. As far as game planning, do you even look back at some of your old film, when he was here as an offensive coordinator? Do you utilize that at all? I know you guys try to utilize everything you possibly can, but in terms of running the offense, is it similar to what Seton Hill used to run when he was here?
Yeah, you really don't rely on that, because offenses can vary so much with your new personnel, right? And who you have and who you don't have in certain situations. So really we focused on watching what they do now, with what they have, because you're always going to adapt. You've got a base, but you're always going to adapt what you're calling, how you're calling, and how you want to attack teams based on who you have. I don't think we had that same mentality as far as a rushing attack when we were at Seton Hill, when he was at Seton Hill. So I think it changes, the outlook because of who they have at Clarion. So we've really relied a lot more on their film from this year.
Coach, can you kind of tell us what they like to do on the defensive side of the ball, and offensively what you guys have to do today? Yeah,
they're probably the heaviest pressure team that we've seen. They like to bring the backers and come downhill in a lot of different situations. So not just, typically every team is going to pressure you a little bit more on third down. These guys will bring it in any situation. So being able to identify that is important. And they do a good job of mixing their zone coverage with their man coverage based on that pressure. So us being able to identify that as an offense is going to be very, very important. We've got some ways I think our receivers could have a really, really big day based on what coverages they are giving us, if we can identify that and get in the right situation. So I think they do that well, and just giving you a couple of different looks and different things to prepare for. As well as I think the strength for them is probably their defensive line. I think they play pretty well. They had a second-team All-PSAC defensive end who's a good player, number 5. They had number 92 up front that, he's got a high motor and really, really plays well, that we've got to be able to handle those guys up front for us to have a lot of success today.
Definitely be a challenge for the young guys up front. Coach, finally, your keys to victory today at Clarion.
Yeah, offensively, we have to be able to run the ball, which is going to set up opening the box. I think that's going to be critical, for what we're going to do. So not just, what we've challenged our offensive line to do is don't just get in front of people. Like I want to see us be the aggressors. I want to see us being physical. I want to see us flip that switch a little bit of being, look, we're freshmen. There's a lot of them, all right, but we're into game 4 now. We got to grow up and go play. So I think that's going to be a big key. And once we, get that box a little bit loaded and give our receivers some one-on-one opportunities outside, taking advantage of that, to put up a lot of numbers on the offensive side and points on the board. Defensively, we got to stop the run. I mean, that's paramount. With Slipper Rock, they were such a double-edged sword. Their quarterback was so dynamic.
Right.
You load the box to stop the run, he's going to make you pay. I think for this game, defensively, we stop the run, and force the ball in the air will be a better scenario for us this week than it was last week. So being able to stop, their McGriff and let our McGriff get loose a little bit. So that'll be a big part. And then special teams, we had a great, game-changing play, which was a huge aspect. And just continue to play on that unit with the same amount of intensity and focus that we play offensive and defensively. We've got to continue to bring that on the special team side.
2 McGriffs. Baseball playoffs. How about the crime dog? Remember Fred McGriff, the crime dog from the Atlanta Braves? A couple of McGriffs going at it today. We hope ours comes out on top.
Yeah, yep, the
Coach,
Griffs.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Appreciate it. That is Coach Dan Day. The Coach Day Show can be seen during all of our Griffins Game Day pregame shows or the Dan and Dan Show, whatever we want to call it, here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, counting you down to kickoff. Don't go away. Our Griffin Player Spotlight is coming up. Brittany Petrangelo will talk with Keenan Humphrey from the Seton Hill Griffins when we continue right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network as we get you ready for the Griffs and Clarion.